Right, shush. Okay, here we go.
Generic F1 girl is generic.
Wink.
Oh dear. It's sad, but it's true.
Alright, come on, let's go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another podcast. This time it's the Monaco GP, brought to you by our partners, Yas Marina Circuit. I'm Matt.
I'm Jess.
I'm Jack.
I'm Tommy.
As you can see, that's not Alistair. That's Jack Aitken, ART F2 driver. How are you, Jack? You good?
I'm well. I'm dying of hay fever, but I'm well.
You are, yeah. You're not got cold. Hay fever. You've told me.
Yes.
I hear that you had an interesting journey on your way back from Monaco. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm still recovering. I only got back at 6 a.m. yesterday because having left Monaco at about 9 o'clock. Well, we were sat on the runway for 3 hours. Then we left, and then I got back, got on the train, which was the only train to London because it was so late, to St Pancras. And then I forgot my bag on the train, which was going to Bedford.
No.
You just left it on the train.
Just left it on the train. It wasn't even asleep or anything. I just walked off.
You didn't fancy it.
So someone
Didn't fancy it. It's a big bag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now someone walking around with your overalls and helmet.
In fully kitted out in Renault merch.
Driving for you next time, yeah?
Yeah. No, I had to. No, what was so bad was actually I hung around the station and was like, I've left my bag on the train. Some helpful man located the bag, and then I had to go and get it from St Albans. Shout out to my peeps in St Albans. I was there for all of about 2 minutes on the platform, crying.
I saw your
that was
Instagram
it.
story was very, very tired.
That was my low. That was like, I realised that I was not going to get home for another 3 hours or so. Yeah,
You wanted to share it with everyone.
I felt like that was the only way I could manage.
Sharing pain,
Share-
though.
Yeah.
Exactly,
You're
yeah.
the relatable driver. You're not showing all
Yeah.
the glamorous side. You're showing
Yeah.
I've lost my bags and...
At 3 a.m. in St Pancras, yeah.
But you got your bag back, so that's fine.
I did, yeah. I haven't got any sleep back yet, but working on that.
So we got you in really early today. You're really happy about that. Yeah. Awesome. We're here to talk about Monaco, obviously. Let's start with our 3-word race reviews. Jack, can you give us a 3-word
Christ.
race review? Yeah, I know. I love it.
I love
Go
how
on.
you always go
I
to
know.
the people that are the
Yeah,
least
yeah.
prepared.
I think it's the best way, you might come up with some random stuff.
Monaco Grand Prix. I did watch it.
You were there.
I watched it.
It's normally Ali's one.
Fantastic. Thanks for that, Jack. Anyone going to come in with a 3-word race review without saying the word boring? I think that's the challenge.
Why do I feel like that was aimed at me?
Yeah, because Jess
Yeah, it was definitely
said
aimed at-
mundane last time.
Yeah. I feel like I'm going to have to mine to be a counter argument to Jess's, so maybe you should go first.
Be prepared.
Because I know
to
it's going to
react.
be it was dull or something.
No, actually, I
Okay.
think it was. Mine was going to be centered around Daniel,
Okay.
and I don't want to say "well done, Daniel" because that's what we always
Well
always
done.
say. But
Blank.
to be honest, I didn't prepare either.
I didn't prepare.
I didn't
Well,
prepare.
didn't
There we
actually.
go.
It's 2 words.
Oh, yeah. Are we going to get into technicalities now?
Guys, we've done this every single time.
I
Tommy. What about you, Tommy? I'm just giving myself loads of thinking time, but carry on, Tommy.
It was intriguing.
Oh,
God, it was.
that
It was. It's every time, isn't it? We just fill those 2 words with "it was" and then a word. Oh God. Okay.
I feel like that 3-word race review was as boring as the race.
Savage.
I'm
No,
go-
only joking.
I'm going to go with not as bad
No, I'd probably
as
agree
people
with
have
that.
been saying. I will happily say that it
Yeah.
wasn't particularly exciting.
It wasn't a classic.
But at the same time, I felt like I was watching it thinking, oh, this isn't great in terms of actual action, but it was the strategy, it was the fact that they were so close. You had the midfield teams, I mean, Stroll pitting and going 4 seconds a lap quicker, which in some ways kind of makes me think, oh, that's great, you know, oh, this is so cool, we don't know who's going to finish where, but at the same time, it felt quite artificial at the same time, with Ricciardo being well, the commentator's saying that he was babying his tyres, nursing it round.
It was simmering.
If he goes slower,
Yeah.
it's better. Like,
He was 9 seconds a lap slower than the quali time.
yeah, just depressing.
Yeah, unfortunately, the tyres didn't work out how they expected it to. They bought the Hypersofts hoping that everyone would have to pit 100 times, and we said in the last race, like, oh, bring the soft tyres to Spain because it would make it exciting and stuff. Actually, this was the opposite way, where the tyres actually made it worse because everyone was just going, well, I need to stop again. It's not worth it. And everyone was just going really slow and just in cruise mode, so it didn't really work.
Yeah, it's the benefit of hindsight, isn't it, really? Like,
Yeah.
you've got the fact that you think they're going to have to pit loads of times, but it's Monaco. You can go, as just say, 9 seconds a lap slower, and no one's going to get past you. You can have a 160 horsepower deficit, and you can't get past.
Yeah, running your car at 75% power, and literally, I mean, he did come under pressure. Daniel did come under pressure. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to take the victory away from him, because the fact that he got the car to the end, as like the engineers and people were saying, like, I don't know how you did it. But I think again, like that's typical of Monaco in the fact that you can do that and still win the race is a bit, for me, it just takes away from some of the racing, which is why I think I have a problem with Monaco. If we're gonna put it that way.
Let's not get into Jess's problems. In Monaco, Jack, did you?
Yeah, I was just going to say Monaco's a special case in that sense because you can, like you say, you can run 9 seconds a lap slower and just drive in the middle, and it's very difficult to overtake. So I think actually we're going to see a more interesting race next time out in Montreal, not Monaco.
We're not going there again.
It's because they're going to bring the Hypersoft there, and that's a proper track, and it's actually quite hard on tyres. But yeah, Monaco is Monaco. I mean, it's all about track position, so teams are always going to try and limit pit stops as much as they can.
Now,
it's unique though, isn't it? Like because of that, like that's what makes it such a special track. We won't go too much into arguing why it's good, but it is that special race where you know that it's got its unique characteristics that you can't overtake, and I think that's good for a world championship to have different tracks.
You need some variety.
Yeah.
It definitely brought variety, and I didn't even think about this, even though it's bloody obvious, but we've had 6 races, 3 different winners, each winning twice, which is, I don't think we've walked into this season thinking maybe that would happen. I think we thought it was going to be
Australia qualifying.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that and the fact that even though after Australia, we've said it numerous times now, we thought Ferrari were going to run away with it, even though they didn't come first or whatever. But it's good, and it's added. It was a race that Ferrari and Mercedes were very aware of the fact that they were not the leaders for, or like the best bet for winning the race, and Red Bull were, and they came out and showed why. But it's just, I don't know. Monaco really plays on my mind.
I think about Monaco all the time.
I think about it all the time. No, because I understand that it's the jewel in the crown of F1. It's everything that F1 is.
Yes.
Glitz, glamour, money, business.
Amber Lounge.
Amber Lounge. The Amber Lounge isn't just at Monaco.
It's only at a few circuits, isn't it? I think it's Singapore and
Abu Dhabi.
Abu
Dhabi.
Canada, sorry.
But I don't know, like as a fan, when you're at home watching and you don't get to be a part of that, I think it is very much kind of F1's business party. And it's difficult for fans to relate to that or to get on board. And when the racing is like it was on Sunday, like I always judge a race by how many times did I jump on social media? How many times did I feel like I could not watch the screen right now and still know what was going on and kind of just listen for any yells from the commentators, which is kind of what we spoke about last time in Spain. But I kept looking at the lap counter going, how are we only on lap 35? How are we only halfway through? It was a really drawn out race, and it kind of upsets me when we did have all of these cool things going on, like Daniel was out of power, Bottas was on the right tyre strategy, you had Max flying through the pack, but none of that mattered.
Yeah, none of it came to fruition.
None of it mattered. You had Lewis losing tyres and complaining the entire race, like not looking happy.
God, he was terrible,
Not
wasn't he?
looking happy
Who
at
was
all.
worse, Lance Stroll or Lewis Hamilton? Like, Jesus.
I don't know. I think, yes, Hamilton definitely cry-babying his whole way around, but Lance Stroll coming out and saying, what's even the point?
Get in the
I'd have
bin,
loved
son.
Mercedes to have, because Hamilton lost that race, didn't he, when he pitted that second time? I'd have loved Mercedes going, all right, come on then. Come on, Lewis, get in the pits if you really want new tyres.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry,
you
lost
want
the
new
race.
Oh.
My bad.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
ninth now.
There was a lot of fans, you mentioned, Jess, a lot of fans not liking it, and we had a lot of 3-word race reviews from fans, not particularly happy. DXN 11 Babas, Meh Classic Monaco, MK Lowry KM, Monaco doesn't work, Max Nelson, literally nothing happened. G Pummer Racing, worse than
It's not there,
Korea.
is it?
Worse than Korea.
Worse than Korea. I thought that was quite funny.
But from
Hey.
I was going to say from
Yeah.
Steady. But can I, on a serious note,
Yes.
just to jump in about Monaco, I agree. It wasn't a great race, and I was watching from the Renault garage actually, so I didn't have the joy of Lance and Lewis's team radio because we don't listen to the TV commentary. But it was, I don't know. For me, Monaco is just such a special place, not because of the glitz and glamour, a little bit, but more because it's been there since the beginning of Formula One, and there are fewer and fewer tracks now which are like that, so it's important to keep the ones that are. And as well, it's just such a massive challenge as a driver. You know, there is no other track like Monaco. You have street circuits, of course, like Singapore, and partially Yas Marina, Baku, but it's just not the same. It's nowhere near the same.
Yeah.
You know, it's so narrow, it's so tight.
Yeah.
You've got bumps all the way around the track. You're driving, you know, next to massive 5-star hotels, the marina. You're going around swimming pools.
One of
There's
the best
nothing,
one of the best corners. In
nothing like
F1
that.
as well.
And you know, it was my first time in Monaco this weekend driving, and it's true that once you get into it, you just see it as a racetrack. You only see the barriers, and you're kind of tunnel vision to an extent.
Yeah,
But
'cause there's a tunnel. Nice.
just on the
Sorry,
same
I
wavelength.
had to.
Quiet.
Hush, child.
No, but it's the first laps I did. It was literally just like I was sightseeing. I was just like, this is unbelievable. And yes, the race is very difficult. Even F2, you know, we're like known for overtaking, crashing, generally causing excitement. We had 0 on-track overtakes in our feature race.
Yeah.
It was still quite an exciting race, but overtaking is just impossible. And the people that did try crashed.
Yeah.
That's probably the main difference to F1. They're just smart enough to know that you can't really do it. But I think, you know, tracks like that you've got to keep in the calendar.
Yeah,
There's never that much overtaking anyway, though, really. Like in Monaco.
No, but it's true
one of
that
those-
you can have a race with intrigue that's interesting, but there isn't necessarily on-track overtaking. I mean, if you'd seen different strategies for the leaders with tyres, that actually could have made a difference. It wasn't really set up for that this weekend, but you know, like in the F2 race, you did actually have that to an extent where you had lead changes because of strategy and pit stop and undercuts, overcuts, you know, and there's attention to that when they do the pit stop, etc. So you can have it. It's just very difficult.
I guess the argument is that 2016 was perfect case in that Daniel should have won that Grand Prix, but because Red Bull weren't ready, he lost it. But yeah, I just think it was just really frustrating as a fan to watch and see all these amazing strategies that could happen, and then none of them cause any effect whatsoever. Like
Yeah.
none. Like not even like. I mean, there obviously were a few, you know, changing in the midfield, but up front, like you saw Vettel push, and then all of a sudden he was 3 seconds off, and you're kind of like, what? Daniel's going at 75%.
Yeah.
How is this not like how? I mean, I guess the only saving grace in that it did show that you could overtake was Max. And again, it's like how much of that was, you know, taking advantage of slower midfield cars.
Yeah.
But I still think he made and track. Oh, Jack wants to go controversial already.
What, sorry?
track limits.
Yeah.
Just backing my man, Carlos.
Yeah, I was going
Yeah.
to say, it was on a Renault, remember?
That was but to be honest, like I think they were both of so Max's first attempt on Carlos and then the second one that he made stick, both of those super controversial in terms of what was okay and what was not. Like so the first one Carlos ran off, right?
Yeah, they went in
Yeah.
side by side, and Carlos
Straight line
basically
the
straight lined
chicane.
it to keep the position. Although he would argue that he was pushed
Pushed
out
off.
by Max because Max broke very late.
Yeah, I mean Max completely
Max-
shut the door.
Yeah,
Like,
did Max even make the chicane that lap? Did he? He cut across the
Yeah.
he
small
cut
limit.
across it. I think
Very
yeah.
clumsily, like the second time where he just sort of
The
bounced
second
over.
time was even
Yeah.
funnier because he literally
Yeah.
did just go, right, Carlos, you're going that way, and I'm taking that position back.
It was
from
a
you,
good
mate.
move in the sense that he was fully committed.
Yeah.
Like, you could tell he was just going to go for
Really,
it.
Max committed? Really? Does he ever not commit to
Well,
a move?
there you go. Yeah.
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 But yeah, it's just like, I don't know. It's a tough one because the context makes it more difficult because you had the previous move
Yeah.
where Carlos went off the track, so the stewards probably weighed that into their decision. But if you look at it as an isolated incident,
Yeah, I can't tell
was
if
off the
Max's
track.
second move was he more concerned about him not being in the same position and having to give the place back to Sainz, because he literally just went, technically I'm still on the track because
But-
I'm
but he
going
wasn't.
over
He
the
didn't make the
apex.
corner, no,
but he
he
didn't
didn't.
make the corner,
curb-
and he shut the door. Like, there was nowhere for Carlos to go. Absolutely nowhere for him to
I
go.
mean, the curb isn't part of the track. What his thinking was, I'm not going to make the corner. Usually in that position, a driver's just going to straight line it because
Yeah.
you're going to damage the car if you do that a lot. And he was quite desperate, I think, at that point. So he just absolutely pulled on the anchors and just tried anyway, and just went over the curb. And he was off the track, but at least that way it looked a bit more presentable than if he just went straight through the chicane
Yeah.
and didn't even try it. So
And
Yeah.
without Max, we probably wouldn't have seen many overtakes at all during the race, would we? We've had a few questions in about Monaco and what could be changed, etc. Kirky Life, or at Kirky Life, says, is it time to leave Monaco in the past? How long will "but it's Monaco" be used as an excuse for a boring Grand Prix? And just for my piece on what you guys were discussing, I'm kind of half and half. I understand the racing driver's perspective, and seeing the onboards of Monaco is the most prestigious historical thing. We don't want to lose Monaco, but at the same time, the sport is very much in a phase where trying to get more fans involved. And if I'm a new fan tuning into Monaco, I'm like, what's
F1's
going?
boring.
Yeah,
No, you've
F1's
gotta
boring.
No,
buy
I think
into
that's
the
the
history
opposite. I
and
think
the
that's the
prestige.
opposite, to be honest. Yeah.
Everyone knows about the Monaco Grand Prix.
Yeah.
You talk to a guy out in the street and you say, you ask him about F1 in Monaco, and they're probably going to know about it. Whereas you say F1 in Germany or Silverstone or wherever.
But
But
they
I think
know-
we're talking about it from
Yeah.
from a spectator's point of view.
From an
If you-
entertainment
Yeah,
perspective.
if you turned it on and watched it, you'd probably be like me, like, why are there 70 odd laps? Like, this is really dull. Nothing's happening. Why is nothing happening? And I guess we've said it before, like, F1 is quite a difficult sport to get into anyway. So if you've got a Grand Prix where people are talking about, oh, this is exciting because this could play out, and then you don't see it play out, or it seems to have no effect, then I can perfectly understand why people would turn around and go, F1 is boring. We know it's not, but
There are a lot of factors that could have made that race really good, though, and I think the problem was it was just very unfortunate that the whole race was kind of intriguing, and you were like, oh, it's going to build up to this massive finale where Vettel's all over the back of it, but realistically, Vettel's got a title to think about. He was never going to make a stupid move. You could argue we're actually robbed of if Max hadn't binned it in the wall in practice and he was the one behind Ricciardo, or even if it was the opposite, Vettel was the one in front and Ricciardo behind him, he'd have definitely gone for it because the Red Bulls are well known for just YOLO, I'm going for it.
Yeah.
I guess
So
that
that would
again
have been a
is
lot better, but
it's the gift of
didn't happen.
hindsight again, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
we said the same thing like about previous races, and the fact of the matter is Max did bin it.
yeah.
And,
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
we
Max binned it. Tommy, did you know?
Again,
Did you know that?
yeah.
Yeah.
Got that prediction a bit wrong, didn't I? I did say Red Bull would be quickest. Me and Ali said Red Bull
You did.
quickest. So,
You did.
And you mocked us.
Ali has his hands up in the air.
I
right
think
now.
we mocked you.
You
That's not
mocked us
fair.
a little bit.
But
We just picked the driver that crashes all the time instead of the consistent one that was probably
Yeah,
going to win
great
Monaco.
choice. You were
Good
blinded
choice.
by your
That's
Max.
winning.
again, I
Yeah.
think this Grand Prix really differentiated the Red Bull drivers. You've got Max, who is quickest. He is exciting and he's daring and he makes the moves that, again, we've said this tons of times before, that nobody else will make. But he makes mistakes. And then you've got Daniel, who is a great driver, but he showed that like patience and sense and smarts can win you Grand Prix, not just being quick. And everybody keeps talking. I mean, Christian Horner was asked, "Is this the catalyst for Max?" But we said that about previous Grand Prix. That surely this is the moment where Max decides he's going to calm down and just get the car home, rather than being the hero, but which is currently put him at a bit of a zero. Because we've said again, we keep repeating ourselves, but it'd be brilliant if Max could take it to the top guys. Like it would be such an exciting race to watch, but he's not giving us those opportunities because he keeps making mistakes, and it's again, like, is it experience? Is it just hot-headedness? Is he just like not got his head in the game? I'm not sure. I don't think we'll ever really know. But I mean, from a driver's perspective, what can Max do, or is he doing all the right things anyway? He just needs to get a break, or
That's what a fan actually asked
Yeah, that's good.
from
sorry.
Megan Cantle 99. It's
Bring
as
us
if
in,
you're the
Matt.
same person. Just
It
Max
was
seems
me.
to be in a bit of a rut at the minute. What do you think he needs to do to get out of it? And has there ever been a point in your career where you've experienced something similar, Jack Aitken?
Yeah, it's
That sounded very formal.
no, it's really tough. I mean, from my perspective, I think it's difficult when team managers say, this is going to be the moment when he learns." As a driver, it's not like you have settings where you're like, okay, I'm going to turn the risk down from 50 to 29, or it doesn't really. You can't do that.
No.
It's a bit of a mindset, but it's very, especially around Monaco, it would be very difficult for him to come in and think, okay, well, I've had a couple of crashes this season, I've made some mistakes, I'm just going to kind of take it a little bit easy. As soon as you start to do that, you're driving in a completely different way to what you're used to, and you're just never going to be in a rhythm, and that's absolutely crucial around Monaco. And they had a race-winning car this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's any time when you're going to say you risk it for the chocolate biscuit, this is the race. And I don't know if you guys saw Ricciardo's pole lap.
Yeah.
I watched that last night when I got back, and I was watching it with my mum, and I said there's so few times when you watch a pole lap, because I usually watch all of them, and you're like, usually you watch it and you think, okay, yeah, that's, he's done a properly good lap, but he's missed the apex there a little bit, he's made a couple of small mistakes, there are some corrections there, you can see where he's kind of working on adjusting things as he goes, which is normal, and that's kind of what you expect. And as an athlete, driver, whatever, it's we are athletes. We're athletes. As a driver, it's normal. All top level drivers can sort of see what's going on during the lap. Ricciardo's lap, yes, I watched it, and I kid you not, the first 7 corners I think were probably nigh on perfect. Like, genuinely, just you look at that and you think, A, how did he do that? But B, no way you can improve on it.
Yeah.
And he was so close to the barriers, just kissing everything beautifully, and it was just mega. And then the rest of the lap was really good as well, but particularly the start of
Where
the
was the mistake, Stroud? The first 7 corners.
Well,
turn
Daniel. And, no. But the point of that was for Max to back off. We might be sitting here and he'd not crashed, he might have finished 2nd or 3rd,
Mm-hmm.
and he'd been 3, 4, 5 tenths off Ricciardo. We'd still be saying he's in a bit of a rut. He's slower than Danny Rick when he's usually been quicker. So it's a really tough position to be in. I've been in that position before. It's a little bit different though as a young driver coming up, because as soon as you're in that position, a lot of the time you're not given the chance to recover. You're kind of cast off and disregarded. Whereas he's in the position of having a contract sorted. Mm-hmm. So he's got a little bit of that confidence behind him, and he's got that in the back pocket. Red Bull, realistically, even if he carries on like this for some time, they're probably still going to put their faith in him.
Yeah.
They've got no one to. There's no one coming up.
But so kind of leading on from that is there's been a lot of discussion about Hartley, and if he's going to be staying at Toro Rosso.
Just looking at Ali behind the camera.
Yeah, Ali behind the camera is like, don't you touch my work drivers. Because apparently word in the paddock is that Wehrlein could come in to replace Hartley.
Absolutely.
And again, I think he had a really unlucky. I mean, this is the thing. I think it's really easy to forget that there are only, as a driver, there are only certain variables that you can control. I'm speaking as a driver, obviously.
Please butt in at any point.
But
No, you're on track.
Luck. Oh my word!
The puns today.
That's worse than mine.
What was that? Yeah, so I think luck has a big thing to do with it. The car's performance is something that you only have a slight input in, right? I mean, if it breaks on track, sorry, Jack.
Christ.
Or if someone hits into you like Hartley had, there's nothing you can do about that. He didn't do anything wrong.
Maybe he shouldn't have had front wing damage, then maybe he wouldn't be caught by Charles Leclerc and he'd be fine.
I mean,
True.
I was going to say driver of the day for you, Matty, kind of jumping ahead. Is it Charles?
No, it's
because
not.
he controlled his brake failure so beautifully.
He did do very well not to end up in the harbour, just saying.
But yeah, I mean, it must be, as a driver, again, speaking on your guys' behalf, it must be like quite a worrying position to be in when you're literally doing everything you can, and it's stuff like that all of a sudden people are looking at you and going, well, you have no value to me anymore because you're not scoring points.
Yeah, that's the brutal thing of F1.
Yeah.
I mean, it's you can do things about it. I mean, I'm trying to think of examples where it hasn't turned out badly, and I'm struggling. But there are drivers where either they're if you're leading the race and you're absolutely dominating, and then you get a car failure, you're not going to be ridiculed in the paddock. People will recognise that, and I think it's a little bit about how you take it. Some people take it a lot more personally. Others tend to say, it's not in my control, I don't mind. And yeah, a lot of people let it affect their driving in the end as well, which is what you really have to avoid. If you're getting mechanicals and DNFing, you can't then a lot of people then try harder and get really worked up about it, and that doesn't usually work out well. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I mean, Wehrlein, you could say, is going back to that. I haven't heard that particular rumor, but I've heard for a while that Hartley's under a lot of pressure. It'd be interesting to see Wehrlein back, because some would say he never really got a proper chance. Not in a true midfield car, you'd say.
Yeah. And I think especially when Gasly's doing as well as he is.
Gasly was amazing again, wasn't he, in that race?
Yeah.
So he's just trouncing Hartley realistically.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, because at the start of the year, it was quite marked that Hartley was actually sometimes out qualifying him, occasionally was beating him in the races and being quicker than him in practice. And, being a WEC driver, it's not really something you would expect.
Look to Ali.
But seriously, because Gasly has come through the junior formula system in like a very sort of textbook way. He's done on GP2. He won GP2, and he was a reserve driver for a while. Did a lot of testing for Red Bull and Toro Rosso. So he's probably one of the most experienced rookies that you would get on the grid now. And Hartley just sailed in and started out qualifying him, which was unbelievable. But now it's sort of things are starting to come back to what you'd expect.
Other standout performances, Esteban Ocon.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yep.
What a good race. Although again, it seems to be that P6 is no man's land, because the top
Last time
three
it was
the
Kevin,
top three
wasn't
teams.
it?
Yeah, exactly. And he was putting in good lap times because he didn't have anyone around him.
Definitely
he was just all on
like
his own.
Formula A and Formula B at the moment. Even with Ricciardo's problem, you still can't get anywhere near Red Bull, Ferrari. Like Hamilton with his tyre problems, there's still that huge gap.
I mean, not for Monaco, because Esteban was literally behind Bottas at the end of the race. But I know what you mean in terms
Just
of
about, but I think because everyone was really, Ricciardo was struggling, everyone was struggling with their tyres. They were in safe mode.
At the same time, Esteban was buzzing at the end of the race, wasn't he?
After the safety car, they pulled away again from Ocon. And it's like, okay then. But yeah, he did a really good job. He was way ahead of all the other midfield runners.
Yeah, Perez was nowhere.
Not really.
He was stuck in the Hartley train for a while though.
Yeah.
That was
Did you hear that, Ali?
a struggle.
Well,
but he was literally 3 seconds off the pace at one point in the middle of the race. I think Charles Leclerc said something that it's quite possible that Toro Rosso were playing a bit of a strategic game to give Gasly that gap to pit back into.
Yeah, and again, talking of WEC trains, Hulkenberg was causing some mayhem too. I mean, I think at one point he had it from 7th to 12th. We're all in, they were all, because Max was talking about, we can't move, it's so slow, it's too slow, and it was because Hulkenberg hadn't pitted yet, and he was backing up the entire rest of the
I like
track.
again though, I like that about Monaco. even though just seeing a train of cars, because you never see F1 cars that close, and even when they're
I don't
just
like
in a
seeing
massive
a train of F1 cars knowing that they're not going to overtake each other.
Yeah, but
yeah,
you
but
never
they,
know.
they will
might.
because like people did have a go. And
If we want processions, we'd go to displays.
Yeah, let's go to F1 Live again.
Yeah.
There's probably more
Actually,
overtaking
though-
there. Let's look towards Canada now. Mercedes were clearly third best around Monaco. I have a feeling that they'll be potentially back to the top in Canada. What do you think, Jack, being a racing driver?
Canada's a place where Mercedes have had quite a lot of problems in the past. But yeah, you'd expect it to play into their hands. Canada's quite interesting because on the surface, it's a power track because you've got that massive back straight, and there's a lot of sort of short but quite quick straights in the middle between relatively quick chicanes. But what that means as well is it's actually a lot about how you put the power down. So if you have a car that's not great traction-wise, all of those straights in the middle of the track where you're coming out of chicanes, you're going to lose a lot of time. So it's why I think in the past you've seen Red Bull actually not be so bad there.
Yeah.
So,
okay. So let's get a prediction from you, Jack. I know
you
won't
want
be
cold,
here for the
hard
next podcast,
predictions.
but I want a top 3 from you.
I'm going to say Hamilton back on top. I reckon he's gonna
Just like
bounce
that.
back.
I was surprised. After what you just
After
said,
what- yeah,
I
I
wasn't
wasn't
expecting
expecting
you to say
Mercedes.
Lewis.
I should have added the caveat that it's still a power track, and Mercedes are. I think they're. I can't see Ferrari being quickest at Canada just because they don't, in my opinion, have the best chassis, and they also don't have the best power unit at the moment. So I think it's either going to be Mercedes or maybe Red Bull, but I think it's less likely. So I'd say Hamilton, Vettel, Bottas.
Okay.
Quite a standard top 3,
Yeah,
but
very safe
after all the
prediction.
madness of the Monaco Grand Prix and last couple of races, I think back to status quo
That's
a little
all.
bit.
Tommy?
I'm going to say Hamilton as well. I think has he won it 7 times? 6, 7 times?
Yeah.
He
Something ridiculous.
wins Canada a lot. I think I'm hoping it does go back where, like you say, you've had 2 winners from each team. Sorry, a winner from each team, and it keeps changing between the teams. I think Hamilton will get the win. Go Ricciardo second and Ocon third.
Oh, God.
What?
Okay,
I'm
Tommy.
hoping the hypersoft
You hoping
and
it's gonna
a safety, hoping a safety car and the
A lot
hypersoft
of crashes.
just and at least making an interesting
If
prediction.
Ocon finishes third, I will eat my hat.
Eat
Point.
this, yes,
Eat
Marina.
that hat.
Eat that Yas
Yas
Marina
Marina
hat.
hat,
Yeah, there you go.
Exactly.
We'll keep you to that.
Okay.
Jess?
Ooh, I'm gonna follow the general consensus and put Hamilton in for a win. I think Vettel, and then I'm gonna go for Max. Let's put Max in third.
Okay. All right. I'm going to back Bottas to come back stronger than he was in Monaco and take the win. I think it'll be a
shout, actually.
I think it'll be a Mercedes 1-2. I think Canada, if there's a track that Bottas is going to beat Hamilton, it'll be Canada, potentially. I know Hamilton's really good around Canada, but at the same time, there's not too many variables around Canada compared to other probably more skilled tracks. I don't know. I've never driven around Canada. I don't know
Me
if that's a
neither.
fair point. But I feel like Canada's a more simpler track for Bottas to be up there and on the pace
Well,
with
remember,
Hamilton.
he had that really great qualifying in 2013.
Oh, when he was with Williams, yeah.
Yeah, he was on the front row or third, so he's not bad round there.
Yeah. So Bottas, Hamilton, and then Vettel. Gosh, it's not a particularly exciting prediction. And I want Ocon to finish third. I just don't think he will. I think before we end this podcast, we should maybe chat a little bit about IndyCar, or at least mention it, that it happened. Because,
Yes.
well, I mean, I didn't watch it. Jess hasn't watched it. But you two watched it, and we saw one move of Alexander Rossi, which was amazing. Any word on IndyCar, guys?
I mean, yeah, it was good. Another good race. It's funny because since Alonso did the Indy 500, a lot of people have started to have their eye on it now, and it always after Monaco. Despite liking Monaco, everyone, I'm one of those people that looks forward to the Indy 500 a lot more than Monaco because it seems to just deliver every year. You get a lot of passing and a dramatic finish, and yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I watched half of the second half because this was during my wait at the airport, so I had nothing.
Do you want to tell us
Painful
about
way
that
to
again, Jack?
No, don't. Let's not relive it.
Cue sad music. No, it was actually a good race. I mean, I was quite surprised. Some of the big contenders crashed out fairly early on.
Yeah.
I mean, you had people like Castroneves crashed out,
Castroneves.
Kanan.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly the rest, but yeah, it seemed like the new car was really difficult to handle. But yeah, Rossi, that was epic. I watched that live, and I think we were on board with one of the other cars who were just in a melee, fighting with the other guys. And you're thinking these guys are at 220 miles an hour, fighting like with probably less than a meter between each other, and they're all like jostling for position. And then suddenly this guy just cruises around the outside and just overtakes a lot of them. And you see from his onboard, and he's gone for a gap which is like IndyCar sized, and just got it perfect.
Because if he goes
That was
any
awesome.
wider, he's on the marbles and he's in the wall.
He was in the wall. Like it was wall car, and that was pretty.
It's like the
epic.
opposite of Monaco, isn't it? Where you actually had so many on-track passes, everyone can pass, and even at the end, because of the way the fuel strategy pans out, you actually had like 3 complete underdogs, and Stefan Wilson, who was Justin Wilson's younger brother, who's like running his car as like a tribute to his brother. He was 5 laps from winning the race, and he just enters that race for a bit of
I
banter.
didn't. That was because it's like you say, it's a great story at the end of the race.
Yeah.
That's kind of what we were missing from the Monaco Grand Prix. Because strategy-wise, you could have had that, but you had these guys, top 3, needed or were really on the edge for fuel, needed to pit maybe, and then the quicker guys behind them, and then 2 of them just pitted. And it was like, at least try.
Yeah, at least run out of
have
fuel,
a go.
'cause
Yeah.
Rossi
I mean,
won, didn't he?
you don't know the situation, but it might have been that Wilson was literally about to run out of fuel and fine. But it was a little bit disappointing to see them pit with 2 laps to go when you're leading the Indy 500. It's like
because a caution could have come out and
anything
just
could
keep
happen.
going.
Yeah,
Push the car
just
around.
keep
Yeah,
going.
literally roll across the
It
line.
would
like
because it
Rossi
would
did.
have, even if they ran out of fuel a lap before the end, and it was like you weren't even close. That still would have been a better story than just boxing.
Yeah, definitely. Agreed.
Cool. Indy covered.
Do you have any comments on that, guys?
Well, yeah, no, really.
Was it as exciting as previous Indies? Because the general feeling I got was that it wasn't like
The end was quite anticlimactic
Yeah.
because you had 2 late cautions, and you're like, suddenly it brought this whole other strategy into play which wasn't before, and everyone was. It was a long yellow as well. It was like 4 or 5 laps or something. I'm probably wrong. It was probably longer, but it was long enough that Twitter was basically exploding. Everyone was like, "The showdown's gonna happen. It's gonna be the strategy versus that," and then they just pitted, and it's like, oh.
The fact that an anticlimax race is a lead change with 5 laps to go kind of tells you how awesome that race is normally. But
The greatest
Not quite.
spectacle on earth.
Not Monaco. Cool.
such an American turn of phrase, isn't it?
I know.
There's
right?
there's a place for America, and I don't know. I kind of do. So it's like going off topic a little bit. But while I was watching the Indy 500, I was just reminded how much I love American advertising.
yeah,
So
amazing,
great.
aren't
It's
they?
So
just
good.
just like the cheesy
So over the top,
infomercials.
isn't
I'm just
it?
like, I love it. Give me more.
Is that or like you're gonna die? Did you take this drug 10 years
Yeah.
ago? You're gonna die.
Yeah.
Like, that
There's a
seems
lot
to
of
be the
PSAs, yeah.
general consensus.
So if anyone who's not American now knows what American advertising is like, that's actually it for our time. It's flown by. Jack, thank you so much for coming along.
Anytime.
Just want to quickly ask this question before we finish. Marty Ruiz Marcel, why are you so handsome?
Blushes.
Yeah. Didn't mention that to me before the podcast or anything. That's fine.
I'll give you your
Have we got
$5
any other
later.
questions for Jack?
Who's your best friend on the F2 grid from Warrior Shoke? Very quickly.
choices.
Ali's been messaging me going, 1 minute left, 0 minutes left, minus 1 minute left. Carry on.
Best friend on the F2 grid.
Quick.
I'm gonna make enemies. Probably. I kind of have to say my teammate, George. That's the
Yeah.
rules. No, no. Actually, all the British drivers are really close. Like me, George, Alex Albon, even though he races under a Thai license. And yeah, we travel a lot together and know each other quite
You're
well.
bros.
So
Squad.
squad, yeah. and Jake Hughes, shout out from GP3, my boy.
Well, a lot of people are your boys in this
A lot of
podcast.
Jakes, yeah.
Oh my god, we need to do a
It's,
video on the squad.
Yes,
That would be
the
so
squad
good.
to get
Video.
that.
God.
Have like some sort of music video.
Carnage.
And finally, at Gabriel_Agron, this is going to be raging that I'm gone about 3 minutes over. What's the biggest and hardest difference to adapt to whilst driving a Formula One car? Go in.
G-force. Just the sheer... Because the step up from F2 to F1 is a lot bigger than it's been in the past. Because F2 used to be the same speed it is, or even quicker than it is now, and F1's just got quicker. So when I got in the car in Barcelona, it was literally like my body was just being dragged this way and that. You get used to it,
Yeah.
but it is quite shocking the first time you go full speed round turn 3, nearly flat, and it's just yanking you out of your seat, and you're
Yeah.
like, this is awesome.
Next year, neck bigger than legs, yeah?
Yeah, has to be.
We'll have to do neck measuring on
Yeah.
the next podcast.
My neck
Right.
was floppy the next day.
So that has been the Monaco GP podcast. Thank you, Jack, for joining us and all that good stuff.
Anytime.
And obviously Jess and Tommy as well, and myself.
Poppy.
And we'll see you next time for Canada.
Didn't look sure about that.
I was like, what have we spoken about? Canada. That's the
Where
one.
are we?
Definitely going to be a better race. I'm saying it right here, right now.
Yeah.
100%.
Controversial.
You'd hope
Yeah.
so.
Monaco should be put in the bin. Goodbye! Recycling bin? Everyone wave. It's the end of the podcast.
We literally don't know what to do with this.
Okay, not in the bin, but in
Okay,
a nice
bye.
historical cabinet. Bye.
Oh my god.